Good evening. Tonight, a warning that many Americans are starting to feel in their daily lives, but few are saying out loud. Something is changing in this country, not slowly, not quietly, but visibly. From rising street tensions to growing distrust of law enforcement and government, to political leaders openly fighting over who controls public safety. The question is no longer if America is facing instability. The question is how far it goes and how fast. Across multiple major cities, communities are reporting growing fear, confusion, and frustration. Protests erupt with little warning. Police departments are caught between public pressure and political directives. Federal agencies are stepping into roles traditionally handled by local authorities. And everyday Americans, they are caught in the middle. Parents worry about school safety. Business owners worry about vandalism and shutdowns. Families worry about whether emergency services will even respond when called. This is not about left or right. This is about order versus disorder. And more people are starting to ask, is anyone actually in control? Behind the scenes, political battles are intensifying over who has the authority to manage public safety during unrest. Local leaders say they need autonomy. Federal leaders argue national intervention is necessary. State officials are stuck in the middle, facing both political pressure and public anger. Instead of unity, Americans are watching government institutions argue with each other while problems on the streets continue. And when leadership looks divided, instability grows. History shows us this clearly. When authority is unclear, chaos fills the gap. Perhaps the most dangerous development is not the protests themselves, but the collapse of trust. Trust in law enforcement, trust in elected officials, trust in the media, trust in institutions that once provided stability. Surveys show Americans increasingly believe that the system works for powerful groups, not for ordinary citizens. When people stop believing in the system, they stop following the rules of that system. That is how societies slide from disagreement into disruption, not overnight, but step by step. America has faced unrest before. That is not new. What is new is how fragmented authority has become and how fast social media turns local incidents into national flashpoints. A single confrontation can ignite nationwide outrage within hours. Narratives spread before facts are confirmed. Emotions escalate faster than leadership can respond. And in that environment, political leaders are often reacting to public pressure instead of guiding it. That is not leadership. That is damage control. Political analysts are now quietly discussing risks that were once unthinkable: long-term civil instability, increased federal involvement in local matters, deepening polarization between communities and authorities. None of this happens in isolation. Each crisis feeds the next. And once public confidence collapses, restoring it becomes far more difficult than losing it. So tonight, we ask a question every American should be thinking about. If institutions cannot agree on who is responsible for keeping communities safe, then who is actually protecting the public? And what happens next if this pattern continues? Because this is not just about politics anymore. This is about the stability of everyday life in America. What we are witnessing is not just political disagreement. It is pressure building across multiple fault lines at the same time. Economic anxiety, public safety concerns, cultural division, institutional distrust. When all of these collide, societies do not stabilize, they strain. And tonight, many Americans feel that strain personally. People are not just debating politics anymore. They are questioning whether the system can still protect them. That is a dangerous moment for any nation. Strong nations rely on one critical factor during times of tension: clear, confident leadership. But what happens when leadership itself is divided? When city officials blame state officials? When state officials blame federal agencies? When federal agencies face public resistance? The result is not resolution. The result is confusion. And confusion invites escalation. Because when people do not believe anyone is in charge, they take matters into their own hands through protest, confrontation, or complete withdrawal from civic life. That is not stability, that is fragmentation. Most Americans are not marching in the streets. They are working, raising families, paying bills. But quietly, their concerns are growing. They worry about safety. They worry about jobs. They worry about whether the country is becoming harder to recognize. And they are asking questions that leaders are not answering clearly. Who is responsible when things go wrong? Who will restore order when institutions fail? Who is actually listening? When those questions go unanswered, frustration turns into disengagement, and disengagement weakens democracy itself. History does not collapse overnight. It erodes when small crises are ignored and divisions are normalized. First comes political hostility, then institutional distrust, then social fragmentation, and finally, citizens stop believing that peaceful solutions are possible. That is the path every unstable society follows. America is not there, but the warning signs are visible, and ignoring warning signs does not make them disappear. So now the country faces a defining choice. Will leaders step away from political warfare and refocus on public safety, economic stability, and social cohesion? Or will short-term political advantage continue to override long-term national stability? Because no party wins if the country itself becomes weaker, and no election victory matters if public trust collapses beyond repair. Tonight's story is not about panic. It is about awareness. Nations do not fail because of one bad decision. They fail when repeated warnings go unaddressed, and right now America is sending itself a warning. The question is whether anyone in power is prepared to listen before frustration becomes something far harder to control. Good night, and stay informed.